the south as we head into Friday. That weather front moving away from northern Scotland, so generally dry by the odd little bit of drizzle here and there. Again, some stubborn fog patches are possible on Friday. Again, some brightness, particularly across northern Scotland. Should be fairly sunny for the Highlands across to Aberdeenshire. North Wales also may well see some sunny spells, but for most places it's just looking overcast and grey, as it will do into the weekend. Increasing chance of seeing some thick fog, but generally staying dry and cloudy, but also steadily turning colder.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Hello, my name's Simon Evans. In just a few moments, we'll be bringing you headliners, two comedians and myself looking at some of the best stories from tomorrow's papers. But before we reveal those identities, here are the news stories with Polly Middlehurst.
Good evening, I'm Polly Middlehurst and these are your latest news headlines. Sean Bailey says he understands the anger caused after a picture of him emerged at a Christmas party during lockdown last year. The former London mayoral candidate said, "I'm not perfect," following the event at the Conservative Party HQ, which was organised by his campaign team. Earlier this week, he quit as chair of the London Assembly's Police and Crime Committee. He says he failed in his duty to those who had supported him. Speaking on GB News Tonight, he said mistakes were made.
Whatever happened, it was an error of judgment. So I want to own that. I've had a young team. They've been working very hard for months at a time. And I came back from an event and they were there all set up, sort of ready to go. And I spoke to them and then we took the infamous photo. I wish at that point I had said, hold on a second, we're straying here, we're going too far. But I didn't. And I want to own that because, yes, I had senior members of the team, but it is my team and I should have owned that.
Sean Bailey. Well, the Prime Minister has warned the doubling rate of the Omicron variant is now under 2 days in some areas of the UK. Boris Johnson says there's also been a 10% rise in the number of people being admitted to hospital nationally week on week. More than 78,600 daily COVID cases have been recorded. That's the highest figure since the pandemic began. However, the Prime Minister says there's no need to change Christmas plans as long as people take precautions.
We're not cancelling events, we're not closing hospitality, we're not cancelling people's parties or their ability to mix. What we are saying is, think carefully before you go. Are you likely to meet people who are vulnerable? Get a test. And I think that is very, very good. Make sure that there's ventilation, wear a mask on transport, and get a test before you go.
Meanwhile, sports stadia have begun to implement new COVID regulations brought in to stem the spread of the new variant of Omicron. The measures include showing proof of vaccination or a negative test result at venues with large crowds. These supporters arriving at Selhurst Park to watch Crystal Palace versus Southampton gave their view on the changes.
I think it's good for general health, otherwise there wouldn't be any games at all eventually, and we'd eventually have to watch it at home.
It's got to be done, isn't it, at the moment, to be honest with you, the way things are and the way it's spiking at the moment. So, yeah, I'll go along with it.
The diversionary tactics by the government, it's just trying to sort of look over here while we're doing different things over there, I mean, how many people are here tonight? If there was a real genuine problem with COVID, would this even be allowed?
You're right up to date. Now back to headliners.
Good evening. Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Simon Evans. This is Headliners, and we start with the Mail tonight, which has Boris versus the scientists. The Independent has cut down on socialising now to save Christmas. Whitty's warning as UK records hit highest daily COVID cases yet. The Express has wishing Britain a very sensible Christmas and a picture of the Queen. Presumably that's going to be her message as well. So the Telegraph has scaled back Christmas plans, and Tory backbench power brokers abandoned Johnson over COVID. The Financial Times has COVID cases hit record 78,000 as Omicron sweeps the country. The Metro leads with "Suits You, Sir Lew," with a picture of Lewis Hamilton being knighted, and Mortuary Vulture to die in jail, a singularly disturbing case, that one. The Eye has "Don't mix with friends unless you have to." I think that's a rule to live by, let alone a headline. The Guardian leads with warning to cut back on socialising as COVID cases surge to record high. And Arise, Sir Lewis Hamilton. He is knighted after his Formula One title heartbreak last weekend, I believe it was. The Sun has "What Price Justice," which is referring to Katie Price's really quite remarkably mild sentence for drunk or otherwise unable to drive at 6:20 a.m. And thank goodness for the Daily Star, which has "Aliens Are Among Us." That is a point of view credited to Danny Dyer, who insists the truth is out there. Well, those are our headlines. We have two guests tonight. Two guests tonight. They are Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. Apologies for keeping you waiting there, gents, to see whether you were here.
I can breathe, finally.
We need those stings every so often, otherwise everything falls apart. How are you? Are you well?
Good, mate, yeah.
Yeah, you look well. Well, you look identical to the last time I saw you. You haven't deteriorated.
It's a different shirt.
That's the main thing, yeah. This time, it's this time of year, is we can just hold a steady course. It's fine, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel well personally, but it's the state of the nation I'm worried about.
And you look good, considering you got COVID and everything, you look fantastic.
I think the main thing is, Nick, to kind of hold out, keep up appearances, because that does actually keep morale high. There's a lot of people out there who are monitoring your state of health.
You're right, and that's a very on-brand stiff upper lip thing for you to say.
Absolutely. Is it not your kind of thing at all? No.
Less so. I'm more of a sort of panic and spread conspiracy theories.
Yeah. Well, you've probably got plenty of opportunity with that this evening. Our first story tonight is in the Daily Mail, et al. It has to be said, I think, pretty much universally across all the Main headlines and the main front pages. Omicron cases rocketing, highest daily COVID numbers ever. That's 78,000 new infections in the last 24 hours. But that, of course, could reflect any number of things, from the number of people who are taking tests and to the fact that a potentially quite mild infection is spreading much more quickly. We don't really know yet. But Chris Whitty is warning people to pick the events they attend this Christmas carefully, he says, which frankly, as advice goes, is about as much use as a chocolate teapot. I mean, that sort of thing works well, I think, as a veiled threat, doesn't it? You want to be very careful which events you were to attend this weekend. If I were you, I'd be picking my events. It sounds like something Ronnie and Reggie Kray would say, and they're essentially, it's understood that you're not supposed to go to the wrong nightclub, but how are you supposed to know what you're picking, what low COVIDness somehow?
Who gets to pick? I don't have any events. Who are these popular people
go to your event or not?
Well, you're almost implying our government are gangsters, Simon, which I couldn't possibly sign off on, obviously. But what troubles me about it, though, is the fear element. I mean, these endless press conferences, I've started calling them stress conferences. I've coined that, to my knowledge. Yeah, as far as I know.
Good luck with that one.
Thank you. Because they're these endless terror bulletins that the government's become addicted to. So I have to sit through this one for my job, which is this. So the key question to me, the two key questions to me are, is Omicron mild, and how do the vaccines respond to it?
Yeah.
And South Africa seems to imply that it is mild at the moment. And there was a study...
So South Africa in terms of the statistics or its own government's
Right,
response?
in terms of the findings of doctors in South Africa,
right, okay.
which Whitty sort of is implying we can't necessarily...
Don't listen to doctors. Come on now, we're too far into this.
You're right. I mean, look, there's the doctors that are saying it's mild in South Africa.
Yeah.
Then there's this study out of Denmark, the Telegraph have published, that 70% of people with Omicron in Denmark were under 40, and of those, 75% were vaccinated.
Right.
So the question is, how does it respond to the vaccine? These are the two key questions.
So it gets past the vaccine, but it's still mild when you have it. Yeah.
That's what these studies show.
Which is kind of ideal, right? This is what we've been saying for a few days now. This is exactly what we would hope would happen to
You would think, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
But the tone of the press conference was very much doom and gloom. I mean, Whitty said that hospitalisations were flat and deaths were down, but he kind of skipped over that because he's obviously saying it's too soon for that to be relevant.
Yeah.
Then the really interesting bit he got onto next was he said, this thing out of South Africa, this information, has been over-interpreted. And he claimed that the amount of immunity in South Africa for this wave, because of a prior Delta wave and vaccination, is far higher than it was for their last wave, and therefore the fact that there's a lower hospitalisation rate is unsurprising. So I've been trying to merely interpret that, let alone over-interpret it.
Is he talking about? Is it a bit like the dry tinder situation? If you have a warm winter, then the next one when there's a cold snap, a load of people who should have died the year before.
So you said Tinder, and I was looking at my phone, checking it out.
I think it's something like that, but me and many people on the internet have struggled to understand this. I may just be not smart enough, but he seems to be saying that, because they've had it before, we can ignore their hospitalisation rates, and that's not relevant to us. But the rate, to me, rate is the key word there, because he's saying, OK, their rate's going to be different. But what about just in absolute terms? If they're finding the virus is mild, the Omicron is mild, then it's probably going to be mild here.
You just get a feeling, don't you? And I don't want to kind of like delve too deep into feelings, because I haven't done the reading, but I do get the sense that there are people who just desperately want this to be more serious, more of a concern, more of a restriction on our liberty and our normal way of life. And, I'm not being kind of, like the Great Reset about it, but there just doesn't seem to be any enthusiasm for addressing the actual facts. It all just seems to be...
It could be a good thing.
Yeah.
This could burn out the virus.
Yeah, and yet nobody within the political... I mean, I think Steve Baker's virtually the only guy who's saying that he doesn't think that we should, throw everything in the kitchen sink at this. Both Keir Starmer and Boris are coming out.
Right.
What's going on?
Well, you could argue there's perverse incentives for the mainstream media to keep these kind of things going. One could argue. And you also... I would never suggest this, but you look at two things. You go, one, are they just pushing their booster? I mean, they're very obviously pushing the booster that constantly says, get your booster on the screen.
Yeah.
So that's sort of out in the open. But the other question is, I've heard a lot about this January 5th lockdown. So a cynic or people on my parts of the internet could say they are creating the necessary fear for the January 5th lockdown. And that's become mainstream because it was in Alison Pearson's column in the Telegraph. So it's not a wild conspiracy theory to say that they're planning another lockdown.
Yeah,
Although lots
yeah.
of people say no one will go along with it, so it'll be interesting to see.
I can't help feeling that this is partly because Boris's mode, his established mode, is this, let's get Brexit done. What we really need now is everyone to get a boost. What we need is everyone to get jabbed. What we need, and he really likes these punchy, basic sort of messages. And they distract you, of course, because we know he's having a torrid time.
I mean, the thing that is genuinely of a safety concern, if it's suddenly, as it is, going crazy and so many people have it, there are concerns of the staff being, NHS staff being able to, enough to be able to keep things going. That is a real concern.
But it has been a real
even
concern
if it's mild,
every single winter.
That's true, but even if it's mild, but
Yeah.
if it's this much more contagious and whatever, there is this window of enough people having it that really could.
If the booster actually has the desired effect, because the studies out of Denmark are showing that the booster is actually not working. So that's the big question: does the booster work?
I think there's a lot of the big growth here is that you finally admit that COVID exists. I think that's really.
Outrageous.
As soon as it becomes mild enough not to worry about, it's okay. Well, our next story is also COVID-related. God knows it's hard to get away from the little fella. This is in The Telegraph, which is suggesting that the Wuhan lab leak hypothesis, as it's still known, is now the most likely origin story for that virus. The one that has pissed all over the world's chips these last 2 years. This is the considered opinion of Dr. Alina Chan, who is a highly qualified academic who has also co-authored a book called Viral with Matt Ridley, Lord Ridley, who I am annoyed to say, actually, I have that book queued up to read. I've had that one on my device for a few weeks and I haven't yet done so, or I could have been a lot more authoritative on this issue. But his last book on innovation was excellent. I do think he's a good, clear writer, and I will be probably reading this. This bit I do like from Dr. Chan. We know this virus has a unique feature, which is called the furin cleavage site. And without this feature, there is no way this would be causing the pandemic. A proposal was leaked showing that EcoHealth and the Wuhan Institute of Virology were developing a pipeline for inserting novel furin cleavage sites into viruses. So you find these scientists who said in early 2018, I'm going to put horns on horses, and at the end of 2019, a unicorn turns up in Wuhan city. That's a quote from this academic, and I have to say it sounds quite plausible to me.
Oh my God, this is unbelievable. I feel like an idiot because when this letter first came out and they sort of said there's no way that it came from a lab, and then all the Trump supporters and and being sort of a lefty person, I was just like, look at him and whatever.
China.
And now, how dare he? It's obviously someone eating a bat.
Yeah.
And because they're delicious.
I mean, one of those things, sorry to interrupt you, but one of the things I always found slightly odd about that kind of the way that one theory was supposed to be racist and was going to foment problems in Chinatown, in New York City and all the rest, and the other one was fine, was the idea that it was less offensive to say the Chinese have visited this horror upon us because they can't help eating bats for, in open-air markets, rather than they have one of the world's most advanced labs. But there's been a security breach. I would have thought the former of those is slightly more offensive, if anything.
Yeah, no, I hadn't thought that, and you're totally right.
Yeah.
But, it looks like it's a lab. I was wrong. Most people I knew were wrong.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people are willing to admit that now, and we've got to look at, what are the ramifications for this? I mean, this has destroyed the world. Millions of people dead, the economic price, the price to education, children. I mean, it's insane. And can we finally go, wait a minute, maybe China should, take some responsibility for this?
Well, I think obviously I haven't read the book yet, as I say, unfortunately. There is a suggestion that security within the lab itself is a sort of international responsibility. And of course, Dr. Fauci, who's been running the whole safety angle in America, has some degree of involvement with the programs that were being operated there as well. So there's kind of American involvement as well, which is arguably even more troubling.
Allegedly the gain of function research. But see, this is the gaslighting of the mainstream media, because for ages it was this is a conspiracy, as Josh was saying. Then the second that it was allowed, Jon Stewart came on to Stephen Colbert, did a very funny piece about it's probably the coronavirus lab that caused the coronavirus. You know,
Did he say it was like if there was a chocolate outbreak in Hershey City?
Exactly.
You would, you would assume. Yeah.
Right, and it was a very funny bit, and it was such an obvious assumption, but we weren't allowed to say it was a conspiracy theory. You were banned from Facebook until the second we were allowed to say it. So it's this new type of control from media where it's like everything's a conspiracy theory until it's just fact.
Yeah.
So and the other part
That's how it works, by the way.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to know how...
The other part that
Schopenhauer had a quote something about that, didn't he? That there is a very narrow window between something being furiously denied and being accepted as plain and obvious good sense. You know,
that's interesting. He also had some dodgy views on women, but we know that this is the bit that scares me the most. We know that experiments are being done at biosecurity level 2, similar to a dentist's office, that resulted in 10,000 times increases in infectivity of viruses and 3 or 4 times their lethality. The important thing is to stop doing these experiments that are risky. You don't say. It's got a level of... We're in a dentist office coming up with deadly viruses.
I mean, I suppose there is something to be said for investigating how viruses work and how... The question, I suppose, a question is, was the research, if it is proven that this came out of a lab, was the research that somebody was doing how to make a nasty, evil virus that will destabilise the West or whatever, or were they trying to see how viruses work so that when one did get released by a bat-eating maniac...
Pump up your security. Because I have broken into my dentist's office a bunch of times. It's easy peasy, and I got that gas.
Do you think they kind of crawled through the ventilator shaft? That always seems to be like...
I don't want to give away my secrets, because otherwise I'm not going to get in again.
We're going to take a break now. It's the weather, it's some ads, and then it's more of us. Don't go away. We'll be back shortly.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The forecast for tomorrow will be similar for the next several days, actually. Dry for the vast majority, but also fairly drab. Won't be completely dry tomorrow. There will be some rain across the north of Scotland being created by this weather front. But it's high pressure that is starting to dominate across the south, and over the next few days that high will continue to move northwards and control our weather through the weekend and beyond. That weather from those still providing some rain and drizzle over Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland through the rest of this evening. It's gradually going to work north overnight, so turning drier in Northern Ireland, southwest Scotland, so maybe some drizzle over the mountains of Wales. Generally a lot of cloud here, but with some clearer skies across northeast England. Temperatures could get close to freezing, certainly in rural areas, and there could be some stubborn fog patches here, so through parts of Yorkshire and Lincolnshire in particular. And if we do see some fog here, well, it may well last for much of Thursday. We should see that cloud and rain starting to pull away from northern Scotland, likely to stay fairly damp in Shetland for most of the day. But elsewhere, as I said at the start, it is generally cloudy but dry. Temperatures still a touch above average, although not quite as mild as today. And if that fog does stick around, well, temperatures could be very much more suppressed. Through Thursday evening, again, a few holes in the cloud could allow some fog patches to form, parts of North Wales and, again, the northeastern quarter of the UK. Generally just a lot of cloud across the south as we head into Friday. That weather front moving away from northern Scotland, so generally dry by the odd little bit of drizzle here and there. Again, some stubborn fog patches are possible on Friday. Again, some brightness, particularly across northern Scotland. Should be fairly sunny for the Highlands across to Aberdeenshire. North Wales also may well see some sunny spells, but for most places it's just looking overcast and grey, as it will do into the weekend. Increasing chance of seeing some thick fog, but generally staying dry and cloudy, but also steadily turning colder.
Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilized conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Join us for Political Correction. We're here every Sunday to correct politics and put you, the people, back in charge.
We talk about all areas of the United Kingdom, including Northern Ireland.
Our debate goes way beyond the Westminster Village. It's about the real country. It's about your opinion. So please, we want you to tell us what you think.
This is Political Correction.
Every Sunday morning from 10 a.m. here on GB News.
You're watching GB News live across the UK, the world, and our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We're here for you. Don't forget to join our community by hitting the subscribe button.
And download the GB News app so you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm Simon Evans. With me are two comedians in the form of Nick Dixon and Josh Howie. The Mirror, gentlemen, has a story, the Christmas party, which has caught out a Tory party once again. This time it's at CCHQ, Christmas Campaign Headquarters, has been suggested as the satirical reading of that acronym. This is our occasional GB News contributor, I think, Sean Bailey.
Yeah. So, I mean, Mirror are killing it at the moment. the journalist Pippa Carrara has obviously just got there's the photo. I don't know if you can see this, but I was at that party. I'm wearing the paper hat.
Oh,
you can see me sort of in the middle there.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
Yeah, that is a bit like you.
Yeah, I know.
Who's the fella at the front in the Christmas jumper? He must surely have to resign.
Yeah, it looks a bit like Dick actually.
Yeah.
But
I don't go to parties at all, so I'm never going to face.
Yeah. So you're not busted.
It is kind of. I mean, I understand people being angry, but there's also something so tragic about it, isn't there?
Oh my God! Well, that's the funny thing is the Mirror is described it as a raucous Xmas party. I do not want to ever go to the Mirror Christmas party. If they think that's raucous,
one of those tragic sort of perma-heated curry plates.
Wow!
It's not exactly Hugh Hefner, is it? I mean, someone's wearing a tie and suspenders, and I think I can see Volavon in the corner.
Remember when Max Mosley was in trouble for dressing in Nazi uniform and being abused by strippers? And nowadays you wear a paper hat, and it's the end of your career.
It even says in the article, a catered buffet features prominently. It's not typically
that was
raucous,
the best party I've ever been to.
God, what have we become?
But their spokesman said for the Conservative Party, at the main building, the CCHQ, said senior CCHQ staff became aware of an unauthorised social gathering in the basement. look, you don't get that amount of buffet down there being an unauthorised party.
Do you think that came in with Deliveroo or kind of diplomatic baggage?
Oh, where does this huge table of food go? Like, how does no one know that arrives in the building?
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, Bailey he's owned it, hasn't he? That was the phrase he kept using. He was being interviewed on this very channel not long ago, and I suppose that's the only thing you can do in these situations now. Yeah,
retired, but resign. He'll be back. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We've Allegra Stratton resigned. You sort of want to see some of the big people resign at the top, don't you? You sort of feel... By the way, can I just shout out to the GB viewers, because I have been informed on Twitter that people are a bit sick of the endless party stories and the endless Boris bashing. So I do understand that. But I do think they are important because they are about hypocrisy. But I also... there's an interesting article from Tim Stanley in The Telegraph, and he pointed out how when you have these ridiculous rules, he said this is what happened under communism. The state imposed an inhuman economic system that almost dared its citizens to find a way around it. And that's what we're dealing with, isn't it? You're bound to break these rules. And as he said in the article, you've reduced citizens to prisoners and frauds. And I do tend to agree with that.
Yeah.
Although I am as disgusted by the hypocrisy, because we were all following it, I did follow everything. At the same time, people are bound to break these ridiculous rules.
Well, I think you're right, and incidentally, I think Tim Stanley is a very good writer. But I think that's exactly that's the mood music that's been playing for a couple of years now, isn't it? That there is that sense. It's a bit like home taping is killing music or something. Do you know what I mean? There's a kind of understanding that if you can get away with it, if you found a little workaround, then, well, I'm saying this, maybe some other people don't feel that way.
There's one...
I don't have, and I don't suppose you guys do either, I don't work in an office. I mean, this is the exception, I suppose, at this, this particular job here. But stand-ups were slightly unusual. We probably don't quite understand the kind of working environment, the milieu that people move in and out. Do you know what I mean? But you're in like a room with half a dozen people all day. The idea that you can't then open a bottle of wine and introduce some snacks into that equation does strike me as a little bit inhumane, even though I realise it's the rules,
That's it. It's one rule for them that's a rule for us that's then not a rule for them. We're hypocrites by saying
But the expectation, as Nick says, that you'll probably bend this rule a little bit, that they're leaving a few cracks for the light to get in, and then...
Although I was in the bizarre situation, apart from masks, of being totally against the lockdown, against all the rules, but following them to the letter, partly by default because I live alone and have no friends, as a Twitter troll said.
And you needed a hobby.
Right. So I just sort of followed it. I followed all lockdowns, but but yes, these were, they were imposing the rules and they didn't follow them. Bottom line.
The Express has a story about potential school closures. We're not quite off the COVID beat yet, but we will be shortly. The kids, I'm sure, will be devastated. Will no one think of the mothers, Nick?
Mothers? Mate, I'm the one who does all the bloody homeschooling.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I don't even know why Nick's getting this story. I've got 5 kids.
That's probably why.
It's meaningless to me.
You started, I'll get too angry.
I'm like, schools, people... No, exactly. So this is in the Express, school closures... fears pupils will not return in January. Number 10 refuses to guarantee. That's not like them, is it? So yes, it's all this. It's the vague lockdown of stealth. I mean, there's rumours we're going to have an actual lockdown January 5th. I can't confirm or deny, but it's not up to me. But the problem is there's this weird stealth lockdown. I mean, even Labour's shadow schools minister, Stephen Morgan, says children have been in and out of school facing ongoing disruption to education and well-being. Again, this term, this cannot continue. Well, I agree with that part, but then he says Labour's calling on ministers to deliver a Christmas vaccine guarantee to ensure all 12 to 15-year-olds can get a jab. One, I don't know if we should be jabbing people that young. Two, I've given you the Danish figures that show that young people seem to be vaccinated, young people seem to be spreading Omicron anyway. So I'm not sure that's a solution.
It's not, and you're absolutely... You said something earlier which I think is really key here, which is that they are using this as a threat, basically, aren't they? They're saying, get your booster. This is like another... Because we still have a third of Londoners are unvaccinated at all, apparently. There's a lot of people who still remain very vaccine hesitant for all kinds of different reasons. They're using any little kind of nasty scenario that children can't go back to school. It's being used as a means to...
January 5th.
Yeah. Your kids going back to school.
I will be dropping the children off school. I don't care if the school is open or not. They can sit outside for the full day, or someone's going to let them in, and they will be back at 3:30.
That could be a big spike in abductions, couldn't there, January 5th?
Unfortunately, they've got each other to protect each other, so it's fine.
I don't blame you at all. I kind of feel the same way. And obviously, our kids, they've had a rough time.
They are. I mean, yes, people have died and family and old people, but young children have absolutely suffered. Their education, their social...
Their sense of the world making sense.
It's just horrible, and they need to be in school.
Yeah.
That is the line.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's quite obvious that teachers need to take whatever measures they need to, but children are allowed to mingle now, I think. Yeah.
Have you found this? Because this is a sort of panic-demic. It says it comes amid reports that panicked parents are already keeping their kids at home until the end of term to try and save their Christmas. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they're flying away getting the cheap flights. That's what I'm really scared of COVID. I better take them out a little bit early.
We have The Guardian next. This is Tory MP for Shrewsbury and Ascham, Daniel Kaczynski. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He has asked for a fixer to find him work with a Saudi employer, describing himself as the most pro-Saudi Member of Parliament, which is quite an achievement. I remember Daniel from a few news stories over the years. He quite famously spoke out angrily about the degree of ingratitude that Europe was showing the United Kingdom after
Saudi
we
Arabia.
had after we had rescued them during the Second World War and apparently not benefited from the Marshall Plan, which wasn't quite true. He has also voted in favour of homeopathy and has spoken in some quite strict Christian terms about his views on abortion and so on. So he backs Jacob Rees-Mogg for Prime Minister, I believe. He's a little bit of an eccentric, but there's a little bit more pathos in this story. Who's got this one?
I've got this one. This is funny. This is in The Guardian. So, yes, he says Tory MP needing to pay school fees pleaded for lucrative Middle East work. His name, Daniel Kaczynski. Basically, his children need to go to private school because it's the only chance that they're actually going to get to be able to spell their surname. That's why he needs that money so badly. But the saddest thing is reading all of his texts and stuff, is that he's just so needy. He's just like, do they understand how genuinely pro-Saudi I am? No one in the comments is like, mate, play it cool. Just be like, play hard to get. Like, I'm chatting to Iran.
And how's that going to play with Shrewsbury, being pro-Saudi? That feels like that might be a conflict of interest. I don't know much about Shrewsbury, but
it's a bit.
They call it Little Saudi.
Do they? Little Riyadh.
It's twinned with it. I mean, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? After the whole journalist incident, to be like, I'm really pro-Saudi. I mean, not sure. His big mistake was using WhatsApp. All this is on WhatsApp. Instead of use Instagram, use the unsend function. Right. Anything dodgy, Josh does this with me all the time. Just unsend, and you can do it on Facebook, but then it says unsend, which is a bit more conspicuous.
Can I just check you do see the photos?
Redacted.
I've got them.
You've got them. Okay, good.
And I'm scarred, but unsend them, or you get one of those burner phones like in The Wire, another suggestion. Because he's been caught saying all these things. But the hilarious part is they say he had broken no rules with regards to second jobs. Yeah, only because he failed to get one. He tried to break the rules repeatedly, but he failed. He was absolutely desperate for another job. I mean, he said, ideally, I'm looking for consultancy on a monthly basis.
No, because I need the stability of regular income. Right. You're earning 82 grand a year.
It's not.
That's not regular
enough
income.
To put your kids through private school, though, is it?
Yeah.
He said he'd love to be an ambassador to Riyadh rather than a backbench MP. I mean, he was not subtle about this at all. But the fact that you said he's a Christian, I now feel a little bit conflicted. I now like him again. But doesn't come across that well.
His Christianity was expressed because he wanted the legal term for abortion to be reduced to 12 weeks, I think, or something like that. And that was, that's one of those things, of course, people who monitor and edit the Wikipedia page are very on top of all of that kind of stuff. But he did come out, he was really quite strident in favour of Britain's elevated moral authority, as having stood alone against the Nazis. This kind of feels like that undermines a bit of that to me.
Just a little. Yeah. Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous.
OK, we have time for another ad break. Please don't go away. Please don't go away. We are one of the most pro-ad break programmes out there, and we are desperate for your company in the final third.
You're watching GB News live across the UK and the world on our digital stream.
GB News is Britain's news channel.
We are the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
We are here for you. Don't forget to join our YouTube community by clicking on that subscribe button.
And if you want the GB News app, you can click and catch up on programmes anytime.
We love to hear from you, so email us.
gbviews@gbnews.uk.
Thanks for being part of the GB News family.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge. and also they work for less. See you there.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Colin Brazier. I've reported from more than 70 countries around the world, covered wars from Afghanistan to Iraq, from Lebanon to the Balkans. I'm trying to bring that experience, that feel for events, to the studio. And something else. I'm ready to give an opinion. Today's stories with a spark. Brazier from 8 p.m. weekdays on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. My name is Simon Evans and I am looking at some of the more amusing stories from tomorrow's papers along with Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. So when I say amusing, this is amusing for you, Nick, because it's a Man City player who's been experiencing a degree of humiliation and disappointment. You're a Man United fan, so you have obviously a partisan take on this, but basically this is Aguero.
Yes, well, I would never engage in such schadenfreude because... You know, I'm a mature person. He's a great, great player. So, yeah, this is in the Times. Devastated Sergio Aguero breaks down in tears before he can even start to announce his retirement, age 33. Special ceremony after doctors told Man City legend to quit over irregular heartbeat. So what's happened is, yes, Aguero had this heart problem. He's quit. At the actual time that he had the heart problem, everyone kind of ignored it for who knows what reasons. And then now he's announced a retirement a bit later. Everyone's paying tribute. And we should pay tribute because he's a great player.
How long ago was the original diagnosis then?
Well, it was a couple of weeks ago. I'm not sure exactly. But it's quite... What I mean is at the time he sort of shuffled off quietly and now it's officially been announced.
Right.
So I wanted to say he's a great player. He's responsible for, partly responsible for Man City, winning the league, being at the top. Great player. I don't mind admitting that. People seem to really like him. But all I'm asking, and I'm going to ask very carefully so no one gets sued, is why are all these footballers having heart issues? That's what troubles me. We've had Eriksen, we've had John Fleck at Sheffield United, we've had Lindelof at Man United, we've had Traore against Real Madrid, not the Wolves Traore, a different one. 2 German players collapsing in the same match. We've had Piotr Zielinski, however you say his name, a couple of days ago. Martin Terrier just today. These are just some of them, and there are loads more. And so when people try and talk, Trevor Sinclair tried to talk about it on the radio, they cut away from it, interestingly. And I'm just asking the question, what is going on? And I just think, why are the presenters and commentators and pundits not addressing it? Instead of saying, oh, we've got another one of these terrible heart incidents, we need to look into this, what's going on. They all just sort of ignore it.
But can I ask you, I mean, you're obviously trying very hard to be tactful, but maybe a little too tactful for me. Are you suggesting it's to do with the vaccine, or are you suggesting there's a drug abuse problem?
Here's what I'm going to say and try not to get us fined. Many are speculating online that it may be to do with the vaccine. Because we have seen Japan, for example, just admit on their national news that there is a link in young men with myocarditis from the vaccine. So this is established now. So people are naturally asking, is this from the vaccine? Other people have other ideas. Is it COVID? Who knows?
You lost me at Man City.
Why, you're a United fan as well?
Not football at all.
No sport. I don't pay a great deal of attention to it. I have seen some people say that it's a little bit like the Paul is dead conspiracy theory about the Beatles. When you start to get a certain idea, facts seem to fall into place and into your lap. And apparently there are an awful lot of footballers every year around the world who actually have these conditions. But
I can't buy into it because I've been following football on my whole life. You'd occasionally hear a player you've never heard of in a league you've never heard of has collapsed on the pitch, and you would hear about it like that. But not several top flight. Eriksen, Aguero, Lindelof, all top flight players. Not 2 players in a match. Not this many players. And also, Rangnick, the Man United manager, said the other day that Lindelof had a collision that he'd forgotten about with another player, and then his heart started beating irregularly. Well, you don't forget about a collision unless it's a concussion. So I'm very confused by the whole... All I'm saying is, why are they not prepared to look into it? I'm not saying there's anything...
No.
I'm just asking why.
Maybe a website you could set up that could prove the ladder out of this pit of despair. Moving on to the Daily Mail, and talking of pits of despair, a judge has told Katie Price that she should be behind bars. Well, being in front of them got her into this mess, so maybe being behind them would sort her out. Not a bad idea. Josh, what do you think about this?
Finally, something I know about.
Yeah,
and I'm passionate about.
Yeah.
Katie Price.
Drunken glamour models.
Yeah. This is, from the Daily Mail. And she got arrested. She flipped her car, 6:20 in the morning, and the police arrived and she said, I took drugs, I should not be driving, I admit it all, making it the shortest ever episode of Law & Order.
Wow.
Crawley.
I took drugs, I admit it all.
Yeah, she just straight away. But the way that they said it is, they wrote, Judge spares Katie Price prison for driving drunk, banned and high.
Right.
But I would have put it drunk, high and bad, and high. It's drunk, bad. The banned thing is the least of the things.
She got high after she was banned, which is
wrong. Anyway, there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Any mention of which actual drugs were involved? Not that I intend to
think, she said, but she was going out for more.
Right.
After an all-night binge, which is, finally I know now why she didn't turn up. So that was good. And but this is it's all the detailed stuff. So she was in court. They basically said, this is what the judge said. It seems you think you are above the law. Yeah, she's above the law. She's got gotten
so
away with it.
I'm going to demonstrate that you in fact
and she's
are
wearing
above
in court.
the law.
She's wearing white tracksuit bottoms and a grey sweatshirt. Who wears that to court? It's absolutely
It's kind
ridiculous.
of her uniform, isn't it? But you're right. If she thinks she's above the law, the correct response to that is to demonstrate that she's not above the law, rather than go, and on this occasion, it turns out that you are above the... Yeah.
Ridiculous.
What would, at least, if she was to be behind bars, as in working in hospitality, helping out in an industry that's struggling to find bar staff...
That would bring people in.
That would bring people into,
That's good.
I don't know whether Whitty would approve of whether that's somewhere that you would select your...
I love the Daily Mail report. They have really gone to town on this. For example, they've said that Mr. Woods, she's got another fiancé, which is amazing. And he arrived carrying a coffee along with her stepfather, Paul, who was carrying 2 more. And I just think, Daily Mail, what kind of coffee? You call yourself, they call themselves reporters, and they haven't said if it's Costa or Starbucks. I mean, get on it, is what I'm saying.
Inadequate detail. Yeah. The Telegraph now has a story about men caught wolf whistling or bothering women being prosecuted. This is a discussion. Legislation is being discussed. We're going to need a bit more clarification on what they mean by bothering women. I think, from my experience, just loading up the dishwasher incorrectly bothers my wife, but that's probably not what they mean.
No, well, what they're talking about, a new toolkit. Police officers have been issued with a new toolkit that calls for men caught catcalling, wolf whistling, leering or persistently staring at women to be prosecuted under the Public Order Act of 1986. So, look, and I don't really want to come out in defence of catcalling, but at the same time, you do question, should it be illegal? And when we're talking about persistent staring at women, I mean, you do open a pan. What counts as persistent staring? What level is... I mean, the funny thing here, and you'll appreciate this, Sam, because it's sort of an intellectual thing I've come up with. The funny thing is that radical feminism has ended up catching up with Christianity, because Matthew famously said that even looking at someone can constitute adultery.
Yeah.
He famously said that I've even got it. Whosoever looketh on a woman to lust after her hath committed adultery with her already in his heart.
I'm surprised you don't know that by heart. I'm surprised you have to read
Well, I just had the bullet points. Yeah. And now that's actually the view of the police as well, that if you persistently stare at a woman, that is a kind of harassment.
It's not quite, is it? Because that's not adultery. That's not what they're worried about. Adultery, which is traditionally almost a property crime, isn't it? It's basically wanting another man's wife.
Right, so there's not the adultery, there's not the wife element, but there is the staring is very bad element.
Yeah.
So,
but is this not... It's another case, a little bit like hate speech, hate crimes and so on. It's another way of just analysing a pre-existing crime. So if you do harass, if you do disturb, the safe passage of a woman down the street past your house or whatever, there already are laws in place which...
I think that's the real thing that they're saying here, is that these laws do exist and the police need to start acting on them.
Right, OK.
And they do, because it's just disgusting.
I'm not saying wolf whistling is pleasant. I hate it when it happens to me. But, I'm not saying it's pleasant, by the way, especially when you do it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the amount of abuse that's out there, and what women have to put up with in the day-to-day is disgusting. It's not just prosecution. It needs to be education, young men, you're too late, unfortunately.
Well,
but in
Gillette
schools
did
and
what they
teaching
could,
people,
didn't they, a few years ago? Do you remember with that advert? And they tried to show that everyone had to kind of behave themselves. And
Well, just to try and give the balance for broadcast standards, even sexually propositioning could be a problem. But isn't that one description of asking someone out? I mean, for argument's sake. Also, they say that they could take action because these behaviours could constitute harassment or stalking. But as far as I can see, stalking, which is awful, never gets properly dealt with anyway. You can't really do anything if someone stalks you.
Saturday Night Live, the intermittently funny American sketch show, had quite a good sketch a few years ago in which essentially it was discussing sexual harassment in the workplace and how to avoid it when you were trying to ask somebody out, and it amounted to flirting while ugly. That was the sort of definition that they arrived at, which I think there is a little bit of truth to that. But anyway, I don't present that as a legal opinion. We have the Daily Mail now again, and not so much an accidental tourist, but more of an idiotic one. Josh?
Gosh, yeah. So, British student 21. This is the guy who basically went to Afghanistan and had to get saved from there after he was when he was trapped because the Taliban took it over. And now he's gone to war-torn South Sudan. If he really wants to go somewhere dangerous, might I recommend Malaga?
Right.
In the summer, don't take any contraception.
Right.
That'll get him in trouble if he really wants to.
Did he achieve a degree of celebrity, though, when he came back from Afghanistan? I know he had a sort of Instagram account that picked up a few thousand, but that's been about the size of it. He hasn't had, like, any brand ambassador deals or anything.
No. But, I mean, the guy's just an idiot, and I'm not saying that because he studied at Loughborough, which I'm still traumatised from that student gig I did there 15 years ago.
Too many sports scientists.
Yeah.
It's a nice story, isn't it? Because normally these stories end with "and then was beheaded," but this one is just that he
found in a ditch.
Is that he actually was completely fine. He does remind me a little bit of that crocodile.
Yeah, it was only fine because the people had to go out of their way to save him.
Yeah, he reminds me a bit of that crocodile hunter guy. He is sort of asking for it. He's been to Chernobyl, South Sudan. He's been all over. The only thing is, he is a Christian. I quite like his attitude that he says, "I'm a Christian." I'm just going to say, he says, "This trip has been a test of God. I'm very religious, so I believe I'll be looked after." And I quite like the sort of boldness of that. You know, so I'm actually making a surprise defence.
God traditionally doesn't like people testing him like
He
that.
did.
There are lots of stories.
He's got.
the Bible.
These are his travel tips, right? He was like, he paid £15 to be able to use Lord on his American expense. So, i.e., if he's captured, then he can sort of say, "Oh, I'm Lord." So that's his ID now. It says Lord McLovin. Is his?
He really is hoping that these people don't actually read the papers or indeed watch GB News and pick up on this.
Well, he did get stopped by the Taliban. They said, "Oh, where are you from?" Wales, and they didn't know what Wales is. And I wish someone had been there and said, "Oh, it's in Israel."
Yeah. Right, Guardian next. Tom Cruise has been sending cakes to people via private jet, and rather than come down on him like a ton of bricks, the Guardian actually seemed to quite enjoy this little quirk.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's interesting with Tom Cruise. I challenged Tom Cruise to send me 2 of his special cakes for Christmas. Did he deliver? Of course he did. It's the headline, yeah. So this guy was taunting Tom Cruise into sending him a cake. It's quite a long and complicated story, but he basically challenged Tom Cruise. He heard Tom Cruise sends out those particular cakes, as we can see in the picture, and he sort of challenged him, and he did actually send 2 cakes. And this is the sort of thing with Tom Cruise. You always hear stories about him that are either very generous or very weird, or both. Like, you know, he always seems to be on that line. I heard a story where he won't let anyone run next to him in the movies. You know, he's always sprinting at some point.
Right.
He will not let anyone run next to him. But then there was one co-star he saw on the treadmill, and he looked at her running and said, "She can run next to me."
Wow.
And he allowed it.
That's more flattering than getting a couple of cakes, isn't it? As he said, he's impressive. He broke his foot doing a stunt for one of the Mission Impossible.
Very impressive guy, but quite odd. I mean, he did that strange mask, that rant, didn't he? When he went absolutely crazy when people weren't following COVID safety. But then again, you could just say he's trying to save his industry.
Yeah.
So he's
and he was visiting a local curry house in Derby, wasn't he?
And he had the 2 curries.
But also, he does have that kind. You're not supposed to make eye contact with him on set and stuff. I don't know.
No running, no.
I mean, I don't know how this is a story in the Guardian. I mean, the standards have been declining over here. But also, this is a bit. He said, and then this is his big conclusion after eating. He said, "Is it the best cake I have ever eaten? Very possibly." And that is just Ofcom creeping into the
other
the Guardian
opinions
there.
are available on the cake.
Make a commitment.
I saw Tom Cruise. I've seen him twice in my life. I once saw him in a bar in Toronto when I first visited Canada, and he was tiny. Of course, that's the first thing that strikes you whenever you see any movie actor, virtually, except Clint Eastwood. And the second time I saw him was in Hyde Park, and he was rollerblading with a three-wheel buggy, you know, like the
I thought you were going to say, the second time I saw him, he was massive.
Well, he sort of was. That was the funny thing. He was on, and he had clearly chosen rollerblading as a good hobby to go out in
that's
public,
the
because it gives
highest
you
of
a
the
good,
thing.
He was on the ones with the big wheels as well.
The only problem is you're rollerblading.
Big wheels keep on turning. We have a story next about 3 tight-lipped men and some drugs, which sounds like I'm about to make enough about us, but apparently this is in the Times, Josh.
So a crew of they had $100 million of cocaine and in their submarine, and they have refused to name their paymasters. I'm just going to guess that they might be drug lords.
Yeah.
When they were caught near Portugal, when this was found out that all these drugs had been captured, interestingly, the next day, the Tories cancelled all their Christmas parties.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a quiz or not. And
back to paper hats and catering.
But yeah, they will not reveal anything. And what's funny is they've also arrested these people. It was a home-built submarine, which is amazing. That actually got across the ocean. And then the other defendants basically are claiming that they just were responding to a distress call.
So can I just clarify, the home-built submarine, does it have people in it as well?
Had people in it and drugs. And when it arrived, it had less drugs.
Home-built?
Home-built submarine.
Would you get in a home-built submarine? I think these people deserve something.
Absolutely.
A medal. Good grief, extraordinary commitment. The Sun next, and a story about an extreme pessimist. This is a chap who renovates missile silos, I think. Somebody got this one?
Oh, yeah, the story bunkering down. So, yeah, this guy, he bought a missile silo in America, in the middle of America, for like $300,000 in Kansas. And he has spent $20 million on it, basically making it into this kind of upside-down, amazing sort of skyscraper is the idea.
I think I've seen this on a document. I think maybe Louis Theroux visited this or somebody like that years ago.
The thing is, people all thought, oh, what an idiot. And because of the pandemic and because of climate change and whatever, everyone now, these things have all sold out. He's got like 2 more going on. I mean, it's amazing. And the most important thing there is that they've got their own school.
Right.
So if after lockdown, that was there is a.
But these things are intended to withstand nuclear blast rather than
anything pandemic. Viruses.
Democratic mayor.
And they're selling from like $500,000 up to a couple of like $4.5 million. These you can buy like a room, you can buy like a proper thing. Yeah, look, we can get together. Surely we can take out a loan.
Some more pictures, I think. Have we got some more pictures? Look at that.
Oh, yeah. Exciting. Can I say what's interesting to me about prepping? I started prepping when it was really crazy early in the pandemic. I got a lot of pasta and pesto and things like that.
Have you used
I was ready. Never used it. But what strikes me as interesting about prepping, apart from these brilliant pictures, is that early on, I was telling people this is going to be a big deal, and friends of mine were saying, no, it won't be. This is the COVID itself. I was definitely right on that one. But it was considered a right-wing thing to prep.
Yes.
And it was considered, and to care about COVID. And the left-wing media was saying, don't worry about it, you should be more worried about flu. And Nancy Pelosi was saying, visit us in Chinatown. And it was so interesting. It went from a right-wing prepping thing, get your masks, get all your stored food, to a left-wing thing of like, oh, COVID's really serious. And then the right started saying, it's a cold. I just find that fascinating.
No, you're absolutely
We're talking about every time it's COVID and football.
It's a missile silo.
The point.
What? I think my point's very interesting.
No, it was very. But in their room, I just want to say they've got a TV screens, or like the walls basically will show views of the outside world.
Oh, so
they can see all the poor people desperately trying to.
Well, so you can pretend that you actually have a window, though, right?
Yeah, that's the idea.
Kind of thing.
But yeah, so they can see the outside world.
There are aeroplanes like that now, where the entire interior of the fuselage is going to be developed so that you can just get a sense that.
We're in the.
If I was American, I'd be in a silo, heavily armed. I just want to say that.
That's going to end well.
Did you ever stay in I think it was called the Britannia Hotel in Manchester, where the Manchester Junkies used to put you up, and you pull the window, you pull the curtains apart, and it's just a painting of the skyline, And it was kind of all right when you got home drunk late at night after the gig, but when you woke up in the morning and you realised you were in a cupboard, it was a really disorienting.
The worst thing is that afterwards you have to then do Manchester Jongleurs.
Well, a whole weekend of it. Anyway, folks, that's about all we have time for this evening. My great thanks to Nick and Josh. Have you got something interesting planned for the next hour, gentlemen?
going to a Tory Christmas party, actually.
Excellent, fantastic. Cheese and wine very much on the agenda. We're saying good night to and farewell to one of our producers this evening. Yes. So you're invited to the
real party.
You're invited to stand outside the building with a paper hat on, waiting for your taxi home. Thanks very much for giving us your attention. That's all we have time for tonight. We will see you here again tomorrow with Dominic Frisby in this chair, and I will see you again next week. Thank you. This has been Headliners. Good night.
It's time to remind ourselves there's always another winter. Canary Islands sponsors the weather.
Hello again. The forecast for tomorrow will be similar for the next several days, actually. Dry for the vast majority, but also fairly drab. Won't be completely dry.